Hey, my name is Carter Higgins, and I am a motion graphics designer. And I used to be a librarian at an elementary school, so I really like to think of myself as someone who has a keen eye toward visual storytelling. So I want to take a few minutes and just show you some examples of the elements of graphic design and how they're used in picture books and how they can really move a story forward. And so the thing with design, wait a minute here, get out of here. Okay, so the thing with design is that even if you haven't studied art or even if you don't know what some of these graphic-y terms are, you're very familiar with it because you live in this world and you see things that are beautiful and well designed, whether you're conscious of it or not. So for example, this picture of a honeycomb, something in nature, is just showing this really beautiful repeating pattern, these hexagonal shapes that repeat here. Also, this picture of trees, you see the repeating pattern. And in this photograph is obviously pretty highly stylized, but the contrasting black and white is also very, very lovely here. Sometimes, if you were to look up at skyscrapers from this lower perspective, what you see are repeating shapes, lines, rectangles. You might even be looking at the shape that's left behind, the shape in the sky. This is just as your eyes experience the world, you're looking at things that are designed. And then something as simple as going about your day driving, and you're probably not getting into accidents because you know how to follow the signs. So this square, I guess it's a diamond on an angle like that, because of its shape and because of its color, you know that this is something to be aware of, something that's warning you. So even before we talk about what the actual elements are, just be aware that you have a feeling for them just from being out and living your life. But I do want to show you a quick video, oh hey, color wheel, of the fundamentals of design, because I think it's a really, well, it's an animation that itself is nicely designed, and it also explains these fundamental elements in a really nice way. And the guy that's doing it has a really cute accent, so it's a win. This graphic comes from kind of a branding perspective, but just kind of ignore that part and think of the visual cues that you're getting. So let me full screen this, and ba-bam.
So what makes a brand iconic?
It's more than a logo. Iconic brands tap into values, aspirations, desires, mythology. They foster an emotional connection that leads to loyalty and purchase.
Yeah, but how do you make a brand iconic?
With the fundamental elements of design. Let's start small, with a simple point.
What's the point?
Together, points make a line. Line has direction, weight, gesture.
Gesture?
Spirit, gestalt, life. Lines then combine to make two-dimensional objects that we call shapes.
Or an outline?
Or a silhouette. These shapes are regular and geometric. Others may be irregular and organic. When put together, shapes can define one another.
You mean they contrast?
Right. Contrast is a fundamental principle of design. The juxtaposition of dissimilar elements creates tension.
Sounds easy enough.
Well, it isn't just black and white. These colors are organized in a wheel that maps complementary tones like warm and cool. Color is defined by hue, how we normally reference color by names like yellow and green. Saturation, the dominance of hue in color. And value, otherwise known as lightness or darkness. Color is the first element the mind sees and the last it forgets.
Yeah, but how do I pull this all together?
Composition is emphasis on a focal point against a background strengthened through scale. Whether radial, symmetrical, or asymmetrical, composition is...
This is getting exhaustive.
Then let's speed up the rhythm, which provides order in composition. Repetition and variation in groups creates a pattern.
And what if you need to get more specific?
Spell it out. Typeface, where the traditional serif or a modern sans serif can act as a product's voice.
And if that falls flat?
Form is the three-dimensional partner of shape. Forms can be basic, complex, and often merged together. On this surface, we find texture: matte, glossy, rough, smooth.
Kinda seems like a whole new world.
Negative space creates a mold around the positive space of form.
Okay, but should we use all these tools at once?
No. Aim for harmony and simplicity, the concert of separate elements. Design is the careful balance of these principles. Our goal is to create clear, consistent emotional connections, and with a common visual vocabulary,
We can make brands iconic.
you've got it.
Okay, cute, right? So, get out of here. They were talking about all those elements of design from a branding perspective, like how am I going to design this soap bottle so people buy it. However, it also explains why your eye is drawn to certain things, and so let's look at that in terms of storytelling. So the 7 elements of design. This is a great quick reference sheet, and I'll give you the link that you can find this at because it's really it alone is kind of a nicely designed piece. So I love that. But let's just go around real quick. So line is essentially just a mark between 2 points. And so if you think of lines that are straight and horizontal or vertical, or lines that are wiggly and swirly, depending on how they're drawn, you get a different feeling or a different mood. Like a horizontal line is very broad and balanced and stable. It's just not going anywhere. That's why pictures of the horizon, you take a photo of the sunset at the beach, are really calming because the horizontal line is very solid. But if you're drawing something with a wiggly line, you've got a lot of motion, a lot of movement, and that animated quality just tells a different story. So over here on the right, shape is essentially lines that are closed, and the shape is what is left in the middle, or what's left behind. And just like that picture of the buildings, there's negative space left in between the different shapes as well. So even any of these little parts right here, you can consider that negative space. So just like a horizontal or vertical line being solid and stable and steady, a shape like a square is going to be a lot more balanced and sturdy than something like a circle. Value, this you could also consider tone, and it's just how light or how dark an area looks. So a gradient of one color from another. This is a great way to create shadow and depth and light, and it's more nuanced than a solid fill color. Space is the area between certain elements. You can use it to highlight what's in the in-between, or to align things together. Sometimes on a page you need a lot of space for one picture element to breathe, and I'll show you a great example of that in a minute. And then size, this is a fairly obvious definition, is just how big or small something is. You might want something small on a page to balance a larger element. If everything is uniform in size, what you get is like a pattern, a repetitive pattern, like the honeycomb. Texture, this is my personal favorite element of design, so yes, we have those things. It's one of my favorite questions to ask designers and artists when they come on my website. But texture in 3 dimension is the feel, the tactile quality of something. And in art, in 2 dimensions, texture is the way that we visually represent that. So if you look at like a newspaper, actual physical newspaper, if people still get those, there's a kind of a grainy, gritty, just quality to the paper versus like a textbook that has a real shiny gloss. And that's a really fun element to add into a book, because a book by nature is tactile. And then color is probably the most obvious of the elements of design. We'll take a look at that color wheel again, but if you could picture just even a rainbow in your brain, or just the way that the colors of these letters are laid out, from red-ish to blue, the colors on this side here, your reds and your oranges and your yellows, those are very warm colors that give a feeling of well, maybe aggression or heat, or just something that's really strong and powerful. Your cooler colors, like a green or a teal or a light blue, are much calmer and more peaceful. And so depending on the story you're trying to tell, you might use color to really ingrain the emotion that you want your reader to feel. Let's look at, back to that. Well, no, let's do this. Okay, so I mentioned space. Where are you? Here, okay. So I mentioned space as the area in between elements, and I wanted to show you a great example of that in the picture book Where the Wild Things Are, because I'm sure it's one that you are pretty familiar with. This is a blog by an illustrator named Ward Jenkins, and he's really great, really talented. And so when he highlighted this, I guess this feature of the illustrations and Where the Wild Things Are, it just was kind of mind blown about how subtle but how powerful Murray Sendak did this to his illustrations. So you've got Max, right? And here's the first time that you see Max in the story. He's kind of a like grumpy, grouchy thing, and he's probably been a bit mischief making and misbehaved, and he's been sent to supper without any, or sent to his room without any supper. The first time you meet him, he's entirely boxed in. Like, this is his little world surrounded by all this white space. And then you see him again surrounded by white space. It's just a slightly bit bigger box, but he's still boxed in. So he's sent to his room. He's getting kind of more imaginative, and the box is growing a little bit. And as he projects this fantasy world into his reality, this image is kind of growing by bounds, and it is taking over that white space. Something even like these little the leaves on the trees are just barely breaking out of the borders, which is really, really lovely. So little by little, in his imagination, the picture is also growing, and the image is taking over the space of the book, which is a great way for the illustrator to show passage of time, passage to a different world, and just create separation between what is real and what is fantasy. Ultimately, to Where the Wild Things Are, completely filling the page to the border of the frame. And so this way you can see he's like spread out the pages of the book. So it started really boxed in and gradually grows to a full spread of color. So this is a really great use of using white space to tell the story. He could have uniformly painted the pictures on every single page, and the book might not have had the same kind of rhythm. So I love that. I also love this book called Along a Long Road. This is by a designer named Frank Viva, and I want to just see if I can play a little bit of this. Along a Long Road is kind of a lyrical look at just the simple bike trip. And you can even see from this website, the color palette is really limited. There's not every color in the rainbow inside this book. There's only this light blue, dark blue, orange, and kind of cream. Everything's kind of in that same desaturated, muted world, which is really nice. And then let's see if I can get through some of this.
Over a bridge.
Stuck. Okay. Hold.
Going up.
So what I want to try and show you is that the interesting thing about the book design of Along a Long Road is that this yellow road, it's the only time yellow shows up in the book itself. The yellow is the road. And so as you turn the page, page by page, the yellow road is along the bottom. Frank Viva actually designed this book, the illustrations in this book, as one long horizontal plate. So you could print this out and the road is in the same place. You can see as she's turning the page, the yellow road continues in the same place when you turn the page as it left off on the previous page. So there's a really beautiful thing happening with color here, and also line. So line as an element, this horizontal line is literally driving you through the book, which is very nice. And also, if you get your hands on a copy of this book, I highly recommend it because I think it's beautiful. And School Library Journal saying an outstanding visual treat is not an understatement. But there's also a great thing happening with the physical texture of this book. So the pages are really matte, but the yellow road is a bit glossy. So if you were to run your hand over that, you could feel what the publisher is doing to highlight the road in the physical copy of the book itself. Okay, so that, get out of here. Okay, so this is my blog. I write a blog called designofthepicturebook.com. That's me. Hello. And this is what I love to talk about is these elements of design and how they're illustrated inside picture books. So most recently I had this this book called The Watermelon Seed, and this is an author I've gotten to be good friends with on Twitter, which I highly recommend being a part of the book community there. But Greg Pizzoli did this really great thing with color in his book because it's about this crocodile who swallows a watermelon seed and thinks he's going to grow a watermelon patch in his belly, as you do. And so the book itself, this is kind of cool. Here's some thumbnails from one of his drafts. He limited his color palette to watermelon colors. It feels very obvious, and the book called out for that, but it really did a great thing to unify the theme of the book together. But the color wheel here that I pulled up earlier, you probably remember making one of these simplified color wheels in an art class growing up or something. But another way that you can really use color to tell a story is by combining colors. So something as simple as using a complementary color scheme. Complementary color schemes are just colors that are directly opposite on the color wheel. So blue and orange are complementary colors because they're directly across. You'll see a lot of banking commercials or credit card commercials using a blue and orange color combination because it's such a powerful duo. So they're trying to be like, bank with us, spend your money with us, and they'll use these powerful color combinations in order to drive that point home. So be on the lookout for that. But a book that I love that does color really well is called Rapido's Next Stop. And this is a book that's published by Abrams Books for Young Readers. When you're in the library or the bookstore, anything that you can find from Abrams or from Chronicle or from Candlewick generally have a really great finger on the pulse of design. But Rapido's Next Stop, this is it's actually huge. Like, this book is massive, which I love anyway because the size of it is just so unusual. But similar to Along a Long Road, there's a really limited color palette here. You've got an orange, a blue, here's that power color combo, and a red and a green. And those, aside from the black and white, are the only colors inside of this book. So I like to call this a complementary color scheme, kind of amped up a bit. So what's happening here is the tetrad color scheme. Tetra is like the fancy, oh gosh, I'm gonna forget my linguistics terms, but it's the fancy word for four, really. So instead of just a complementary color scheme of, oopsie daisy, of orange and blue, you've also got green and red, which are also complementary colors. So using those four colors in this book is really using complementary color scheme, almost like exponentially magnified to tell this story. It would still be probably a beautiful book if there were some like yellows or pinks or something in here, but it didn't need to be that way. It didn't need to have all the colors in the world to tell its story. A book I recommend a lot if you maybe the library has this if you're not into spending money. But anyway, this is a really great book it's called Picture This: How Pictures Work by Molly Bang. And Molly Bang is a Caldecott Honor winning artist. And the introduction to this book is really spectacular. She said she had a meeting with like an art director, and this was long after she had won the Caldecott, so she was pretty established. And he basically told her that she didn't understand how pictures work. And she's like, well, how is that possible? Like, I'm an artist. I do this for a living. And so she really took that to heart and studied how pictures actually work. And so you can see on the cover what's happening here. This is a wolf. This is Little Red Riding Hood. So what she does is using Little Red Riding Hood almost as a case study, she looks through how to use shape to tell the story. Like, she ends up on Little Red Riding Hood as being this tiny little triangle because that is kind of reminiscent of her hood, and that makes sense. And then these black solid rectangles, these are the trees of the forest, and this one here that's kind of slanted and turned over. The forest at first was all these vertical lines, and it was too even, it was too perfect. And so when she turns some on an angle, here's your diagonal line, which is not as calming as that horizon sunset horizontal line. And so instantly there's a lot of tension there. It's a really fun book if you're into those sort of things, which you should be because it's really fun. And I showed you the thing, and I showed you the thing, and so here's some example from my work. I'm working on a picture book right now. It probably will be a concept book or a board book about the elements of graphic design. And so here's a spread where I'm trying to work out things about texture. And so here's some smooth and shiny teeth, and this is rough and rugged like tail. All of the pictures are kind of up close and personal to a dinosaur. But here's where I'm illustrating texture. So these shiny teeth. Oh, where are you? Shiny teeth. Shiny teeth, and his rough tail is this texture of the dinosaur. So I love so much studying these elements of graphic design. I was like, I got to use this. I got to make some things. So here is a list of the things that I showed you. If you want to write down some of these websites, I'll email it also. But you can have this. Oops, sorry. Here. This Elements of Design quick reference sheet is available online. There's also this Principles of Design quick reference sheet, which is some of the ways that those designs can be used, even in a more powerful way, and also some links to some of the things that I showed you. So that's it from me. Hope you will enjoy studying picture books. Now, I would say keep in mind as you are that picture books are primarily a visual form, which is really awesome. Like, they're these portable art museums that you can shove in your pocket. Well, unless it's Rapido's Next Stop, because it's huge. So if you ever want to try your hand at writing one, it's just a really great thing to remember that you write some words, but primarily the pictures and the visuals are going to deliver a good chunk of the story. So have fun studying them, and thanks for having me. And if I can find my window, I will let you go. Okay, bye.